Nice to come into a place where you know everybody else knows how to do their job so well. It's easy. You don't have to worry about anything.
Hopefully the host shares that talent.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Oh, okay.
Oh, no wonder. There we go. Now I can hear it.
Now we're ready.
I gotcha. I gotcha. Cool. Ready?
I am. I'm ready.
All right.
Let's go.
Let's do it. You good?
Yep.
Okay. 3, 2. Well, Senator, appreciate you taking some time and coming to sit down with us before the school year begins. I know it's a busy time for you as a parent and everybody else, but always good to have you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me today. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you.
You know, I want to talk education funding today, but one thing that sticks out from me, it's more of a bipartisan issue, a nonpartisan issue. It seems like the last couple of sessions there's always kind of been that fight between what the school district needs budget-wise here locally and what legislators end up getting for them. So if you recall, the last day or so, it was they're about $100 million short. The gap was closed quite a bit, but it seems like this is a fight that happens every other year at the legislature. Where is the issue in your mind between lawmakers and the school district figuring out exactly what that budget number is and what needs to be filled?
Well, for me, and I'm going to speak for me, I don't know about the rest of the legislature. For me, it's really about what are the numbers that CCSD is bringing. Sometimes, you know, I feel like they're caught between two rocks in a hard place, because sometimes it just doesn't seem like they're getting what they've asked for at the beginning of the session. They came and said, this is our number. And at other times it seems like they moved their number a little bit and we're not sure. Now, as a citizen, I'd be concerned because so many times, you know, the school district has lost money, and we've called for a forensic audit over and over again to find out where some of this money is going. I think that right there for the taxpayers is something that they would really like to see. Look, I've knocked over the last few years, you know, campaigning, I've knocked a lot of doors, and a lot of people would love to help out education even more, but they're so concerned about where the money goes. I think they need more transparency, and I think that that's what this particular superintendent is aimed at doing, is giving more transparency to the voters, letting them know exactly where every dime is being spent. Look, I've seen it in other districts across the country. That's what they're doing. They're putting all their books online and letting everybody know this is where every dime is being spent. And I think as we get closer to that, they're going to see more and more people say, I don't mind giving even more. I know where it's going. I know the effect that it's having, and I don't mind. Right now, I think too many people see it as a black hole and losing money. But as far as the legislators, it just seems like even this past session, as you were aware when you were up there, it just seems like we can never get on the same page. Now, I'm in the minority. I'm not in the majority party, and you had the majority who had to, you know, try and wrangle this in. But the governor was doing that day in and day out, trying to figure out what the school district's needs were, and then they would come back and say, hey, you know, that you met it, but now it looks like we're just a little bit more short. So they kept moving the goalposts a little bit. I kind of experienced that a little bit myself as our caucus, our Republican Senate caucus, had asked the CCSD to come in and talk about their budget needs, and it just didn't seem like they were square with their numbers when they came in to talk to us. And so as legislators, we're a little more reluctant than to just, you know, turn over more money to them. But I think that as transparency happens and as we have a better idea of where the money is being spent, I think that you're going to see both the general public, the taxpayers, and the legislators be on the same page with funding education at the levels they need. I thought we met their needs. By the end, we had funded what they needed. The big fight for us was really, did we need more money? And that's what the governor and many of the Democrats in the Senate and the Assembly said when they passed SB 551 without the 2/3 constitutional requirement.
Right.
They said they needed that $98 million that was coming in from the MBT tax.
So we're talking about roughly that $100 million or so with the MBT. So Republican lawmakers, since the session had ended, Republican lawmakers, a few businesses and organizations have since filed the lawsuit. There is some precedent that would seem to be on the Republican side, even though it differed from LCB's opinion this time around. How are you looking at the chances in court? Are you feeling pretty confident for?
Well, I'm feeling very confident. If you actually read it, I think it's in Article 4 of the Constitution. it states, very specifically if there's any increase. And this now, just to kind of step back, so the viewers who are listening right now, they have to understand that the tax restraint initiative passed in 1994, 1996. This is an initiative process. In our state, the Constitution. I love the class I used to teach at UNLV because it was a 100 level class on the Nevada Constitution. We talked a lot about the initiative process, about recall and about resolutions, because we wanted to make sure that people who are going to be living in the state of Nevada know that these are resources we have. The initiative process is that grassroots initiative, the way that the people can actually change the Constitution to fit what they believe it should be. And in 1994, this tax restraint initiative, which basically said you need to have 2/3 of the legislative bodies all agree that there should be a raise in the taxes, fees, taxes. Anytime there's an increase, it needs to be 2/3. I mean, you can read it, it's very plain language, that it has to be 2/3. That passed in 1994 with about 76% of the people. And I think it passed again, it has to pass twice on the ballot. I think it passed again in 1996 with about 70%. Those are really high margins. If you got 76%, you're talking there's a lot of Democrats and Republicans who both thought that was necessary moving forward as a political body, that's what they wanted. And so when they came in, at the beginning of the session, we had heard that they had asked for an opinion. So we knew that something was going on. Now, by the end of the session, for those who are listening, I really want to take them through sort of a timeline. The gentleman, Senator Kekeffer, who sits on the Finance Committee in the Senate, he listened to, was very, he paid a lot of attention, was very cognizant of the fact that we were saving money because money was coming back from the Medicaid rolls, which weren't as high as we thought they were going to be. Also with education, when the numbers aren't as high. He kept looking at and adding up all the times that we were saving money. And then, the whole session, he kept saying, oh, there's going to be plenty of money. There's going to be money. There's going to be, for what our needs are, there's going to be plenty of money. And sure enough, about 2 weeks to 3 weeks before the end of session, we had Mark Kropotkin, who actually works for the LCB, who works for both Democrats and Republicans. It's a nonpartisan, legislative council bureau. He came in and we sat down with him and he said, all right, the budgets are closed. This is how much money we have. We have about $240 million. $240 million of unallocated money, some of it one shot, some of it that could be put into the ongoing budget. And we said, well, where would we put that money? And we allocated, and we said, hey, we sat down with the press, and we said we would spend the money, $30 million, we put that $30 million back into school safety that the Democrats had put out, taken out, and then later on put back in. We put $107 million into teacher raises because we thought that was important, and $100 million into class size reduction because we keep hearing that people talk about how they'd like to see the class sizes reduced. And then what was left over, we said it needs to go into opportunity scholarship. Whatever's left over needs to go into a program where we're allowing people to make choices in education. That was a proposal that we had put out 2 weeks before the end of session. And so we knew there was plenty of money. So then when the governor came to me and a couple other legislators and said, hey, we need you to vote for this bill, this SB 551, the promises that were made were, we'll help you with some of the bills you have. And, I'd say, well, I get that. There's always a negotiation. I said, but, I made a promise in 2015 that when this sunset went into effect that, we were going to give a tax break to the businesses that are located here in the state of Nevada, businesses that need a break on their taxes. And I said, that was a commitment I made in 2015, and I'm not going to go back on that commitment. So tell me if I'm contemplating this, what do you need the money for? They never did come around and say, they just said education. There was never a specific, this is what we're going to put it in. Our response as a Republican Senate caucus was always, we have plenty of money. We showed you we have money. We showed you where you could put the money so that the raises were taken care of, so that school safety was taken care of, so that class sizes could come down, so that school choice could still be something that everybody had a shot at, or at least more people had a shot at. That was, they never did address that.
As we sit here today, do you believe there's still money that was left on the table?
Oh, I still think that there's money there. I think that a quick look would tell you that there's probably in excess of 150 unallocated dollars. Some of it, again, one shot that you can't go put back in the budget except for one-time projects. But there's probably money. Well, the governor even said it. He put a statement out, and I can't say the statement by heart. I mean, but basically he said. Not to worry that if this lawsuit goes south of where we think it is, he and his party, that will have money. There's two different sources of money. One was the rainy day fund he was talking about, and the other one was money that it's still there, just it's unallocated, because at the end of every session, you have to have an ending fund balance.
Right.
And it has to be at least 5%. Well, if you look at our ending fund balances right now, they're way in excess of 5%. I think it's 9% the first time and 12% or excess of 12% now. We have probably $150 million or more north of that. And the governor even said in his statement, he's not worried. Don't worry, if we don't win this lawsuit, we'll still be able to put money into education. Well, where's that money coming from all of a sudden? It was already there. So in my mind, the way I look at it, one of two things had to have happened. One, those Democrats who sat on either the Finance Committee in the Senate or in the Democrats who sat on the Ways and Means Committee in the Assembly, they didn't really pay attention to how much money they had. They were negligent in their duties and responsibilities in that area. Or two, it didn't matter because they just never ever planned on using that money for education necessarily. They just wanted to create a constitutional crisis. They wanted to pass this without a 2/3. They wanted the money to show that they didn't need 2/3 going forward. Really, I think disrupting the intent of the tax restraint initiative of 94-96, because in the future they would like to be able to raise taxes, property tax, adjusted as they wish, without 2/3, without negotiating with the minority party, or they could do it with the commerce tax, lowering the threshold if they want to, because right now the threshold to pay into commerce is $4 million. I think they would love to lower it down to $1 million. So that's in my mind, that was the ultimate goal, because they never could explain to us what they wanted to use the money for. The money is there. Those educators out there, and I'll let you ask another question, but those educators out there who keep worrying that the Republicans are out there to destroy education or take money away from it, the money's there. We knew that the money was there. We knew that we wanted to take care of school safety. That was a priority. We knew that we wanted to make sure that teachers had a raise. That was one of the other priorities we had. Of course, we had other things that we would like to have seen too to help education and didn't get through, but we knew this stuff.
And that's where I was going to ask. We talk about Democrats were very vocal on the final day of the session, and then again when the Republicans filed the lawsuit, that Republicans cared more about businesses than they did about kids, essentially, because of, I believe Senator Settelmeyer had talked about, well, there were some other options, maybe tax-wise sales tax, that the caucus could be open to in lieu of, letting that bill sunset. So what do you make of that criticism?
Well, first of all, it was interesting because when we brought this information to a lot of the media, some of the media ran with the story. It was, a sort of a tepid response at best, lukewarm. They kind of ran with it. But then that story surfaced, and I thought, well, here we have evidence that there's plenty of money for education, plenty of money from what they've asked for. They wanted, more money for items, and they even said after we released our statement that we would put money into class size reduction, we put money into teacher raises, we put money into school safety. Even after we did that, they came back with their response, and a lot of it, their response was, they don't know what they're talking about. There's not that kind of money in there. I'm like, well, how can you respond that way when the person telling us that there's $240 million is the same person who works for you? It's there. So my response to them saying, Settelmeyer said, you are creating a constitutional crisis that does not need to exist, and yet you're doing it because you are completely undercutting the will of the people. They went to the ballot box twice in 2 successive cycles and said, we want this tax restraint, right? We want both parties to work together in order to figure out if this is necessary. And they're trying to undermine that. My response to Settelmeyer was basically saying, there's a lot of things we could have done. You guys could have worked with us more. That was his original goal, is to say we could work out this if you want to, but please tell us what you want to use it for. I'm going to go back to that every time. I almost feel like Dustin Hoffman's character Raymond in Rain Man, Raymond, and he kept saying over and over again, Qantas never crashed. I have to say over and over again, there's plenty of money. We knew there was plenty of money. What do you want to use the money for in education? And there never was a response to what they wanted to do that we already didn't have a response for. So I just think it was a non-story when they kept going on and on about, Settelmeyer saying, well, we take it from this, we do this tax. That wasn't his purpose. His purpose was to say, there's plenty of money. What do you need it for? You're not giving me a response to what do you need it for. We're done talking. So that would be my response.
Well, Democrats are going to push now. The talk was, okay, the weighted funding formula now will go into effect in 2021, so the next biennium, but no increases in funding at that point were put in, and they're going to push for more money for education funding. So
Yep.
do you see this as part of trying to set up something for the 2021 session?
Oh, perhaps. I mean, I don't know if they really thought about that. I really thought it was personally disingenuous to introduce such a big change and not talk about increasing funding. I thought that they should have done that the same session, because I feel like you're obligating the particular legislators who are elected during this session to sit down and then talk about that. Now you're obligating the next legislative body to contemplate how do you rectify the harm or the potential harm or potential damage that might happen to some of the areas where there'll be growth, but you won't actually see an increase in monies going to the rural areas, for example. So I thought we should have tackled that then. But yeah, it could be one of those where now they'll need to. They're going to have to increase. I don't know if that particular move with the 2/3 is really geared towards that, because now. And the reason I say that is because now what you've done and what you haven't had in years past is you have rural legislators in the past have not really wanted to raise taxes, but now that their districts may never see an increase for many, many years unless they see a real uptick in the number of people moving in, they might be more apt to vote for something that brings more dollars in, and that, of course, I think that was probably the goal there as well.
Well, I really do appreciate you taking the time to come in and sit down with us. I know with the school year coming up, a lot of questions that people have, so I appreciate you coming in and answering some of them.
Anytime, and I actually belong to a nonprofit that we go around and we talk to the schools, public, private, public charter schools, and we sit down and we talk about the legislation that passed and kind of go over details of what the impact will be on administrators, teachers, and parents. So I love talking about this stuff. Appreciate it.
All righty.